It started with a scream. "This is private property." The shrill voice echoed across the marina like a fire alarm. I turned fast. There she was. Blonde bob, pastel cardigan, clutching a clipboard like it was a weapon. She stormed toward the dock like a heat-seeking missile. I barely had time to pull my hand back from the mooring rope before she slapped a bright orange sticker onto the side of my boat. But not just any boat. This was a retired Navy patrol vessel I spent 5 years restoring. And she just vandalized it. Everyone froze. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. A teenager dropped his fishing rod. A couple on a paddleboard paddled backward. Then it happened. From the corner of the dock, a man stepped forward. Broad chest, dark uniform, calm but cold eyes. "Step away from the vessel," he said. His voice didn't shout, but the authority in it shut everyone up instantly. HOA Karen turned to face him, her lip twitching. "Who the hell are you?" she barked. "Black Cobra Security," he replied, flashing a badge none of us had ever seen before. That's when it started. And by the time it ended, Karen would be buried in lawsuits, exposed for fraud. And the government almost $500,000. But rewind. Let's go back to 3 days before that moment. I had just docked the Sentinel, my fully restored 1983 Navy patrol boat, into a lease slip at Harborview Marina. Not a flashy place, but quiet, secure, and close to my house. I paid 3 months in advance. I filed paperwork. I got written permission from the dockmaster. I was good, or so I thought. What I didn't know was that this marina had recently been bought out by a private housing association, one with an iron-fisted president named Karen Winslow. She wasn't your average HOA board member. She was a tyrant with a vendetta against anything she couldn't control. And apparently, she had decided that my patrol boat was an eyesore. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a boat to me. I'm a retired Navy engineer. That vessel saved lives. It carried men through storms, through combat, and when I bought it at auction, it was practically a skeleton. I rebuilt it bolt by bolt. For Karen, it was a rust bucket. For me, it was blood, sweat, legacy. The first warning sign came when I got an email. Object lined. Unauthorized. Military vessel on property. No salutation. No signature. Just a PDF attachment with 3 grainy photos of my boat and a red circle around a decal on the stern. They claimed it violated aesthetic code compliance. I replied politely, explained. I had approval. No answer. Next morning, my dock key fob was deactivated. I had to hop the fence just to check on my bilge pumps. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a mistake. This was War Day 2. I got a printed notice taped to my windshield. $1,200 fine, non-compliant watercraft storage, no contact number, no official letterhead, just bold black type and a demand for immediate payment. I checked with the marina office. The dockmaster said Karen had recently demanded full control of the marina lot even, though she had no marine management license. Still, she was using HOA legalese to bully anyone she didn't like, and that included me. I started documenting everything. Photos, emails, dates. I contacted a maritime lawyer, even called a buddy of mine, Jake, who used to work with Naval Intelligence. I said, "Can she really do this?" He laughed and said, "Only if you let her. These HOA types, they push until someone pushes back." On the 3rd day, I caught her in the act. I was doing maintenance on the sonar when I saw her on the dock, clipboard in hand, snapping photos of the boat's serial plate. I called out, "Ken, I help you." She spun like a hawk and shouted, "This vessel is being removed. You're trespassing." Then she slapped the orange sticker immediate removal order right on the hull. That was it. That's when Black Cobra Security showed up. The guy's name was Marcus. Turns out Black Cobra wasn't a security company, it was a private security contractor for federal property protection. Karen had overstepped. She was reporting me to the HOA. What she didn't know was that tagging a vessel with government registration, especially one still coded under Navy surplus, can be considered vandalism of federal property. Took her badge number, and then told me quietly, "You may want to prepare a statement." What happened over the next 72 hours unfolded like a slow-motion collapse. Karen doubled down. She sent 3 more fines totaling over $15,000. She had my dock access permanently revoked. She even emailed the local police claiming a suspicious military individual was living aboard a potentially armed vessel. That triggered a full inspection, but once law enforcement confirmed I had all documentation, licenses, and no weapons aboard, they backed off. But now Karen had just filed a false police report, and that's a whole new level of stupid, Jake. Ran a background check. What we found shocked me. Karen wasn't even the legally registered president of the HOA. Her term had expired 2 months ago. But she had faked signatures on the transition paperwork to stay in power. She had been issuing fines without board votes. She was essentially acting as a rogue dictator of the community. Worse, we found evidence that she had skimmed over $90,000 from HOA's funds under marina maintenance line items that didn't exist. By the time my lawyer filed a restraining order and a cease and desist, local news caught wind of the story. Headline: Veterans Navy boat tagged by HOA, investigation underway. It went viral overnight. People from all over started showing support. Vets, boaters, even a state senator. Once served aboard a patrol vessel like mine. They weren't just angry, they were furious. And then the HOA board, finally catching up, called an emergency meeting. Karen didn't show. 2 days later, federal agents served a subpoena to the HOA office. Every fake fine, every photo she took, every fund transfer, all of it came under scrutiny. And when the dust settled, the total amount she owed in penalties, legal fees, and restitution, $452,000, but none of that erased what she did. The embarrassment, the harassment, the risk she put me in by calling law enforcement with fake claims. So I did something most people wouldn't. I invited the press back. This time, for a ceremony. On the deck of the Sentinel, we raised the old Navy Jack. Don't tread on me. Veterans lined the dock. The same people she tried to intimidate stood tall beside me. That's when I told them, you don't fight bullies by playing their game. You fight them by exposing them, Karen. Last I heard, she filed for bankruptcy and moved to Arizona, somewhere far from boats. It's far from cameras. But trust me, no matter how far she runs, that fine's not going away. And neither is her name. Forever tagged in bold across the internet as the woman who tried to sink a Navy vet and ended up drowning in her own lies. The letter was thick, coarse paper, folded with precision, sealed with a wax stamp that bore the old Navy emblem, eagle, anchor, and crossed swords. It was placed dead center under my windshield wiper, like whoever left it knew I'd find it right after my morning coffee. No envelope, no handwriting, just that wax seal, staring at me, like an order from command. I looked around the parking lot. Empty. No one lingering. No vehicles out of place. But something in my gut twisted. This wasn't coincidence. Someone had placed it there for a reason. I peeled it open.
Ow.
Inside was a single sheet of heavy stock, paper-typed, not handwritten. The message was short. You're not the only one she tried to silence. Meet me at Dock 14, 9 p.m., come alone. Bring copies of everything. Dock 14 wasn't part of the public marina. It was a decommissioned dry slip, cordoned off by fencing after part of it collapsed during a storm last winter. No lights, no foot traffic, just old planks and shadows. My first instinct was that this was a trap. But the Navy taught me to trust patterns in the timing of that letter. It came the same day Karen filed for bankruptcy. I hadn't told anyone about that detail yet. So whoever left it knew more than they should have. At 9 p.m. sharp, I walked through the chain-link gate with a flashlight, manila folder tucked under my jacket. The water slapped softly against the wood. Then I heard it 2 clicks, not loud but sharp, like a pen being opened. I turned. A man stood at the end of the dock, late 50s, buzzcat, long wool coat, eyes locked on mine. You Navy? He asked, without moving. I nodded. You. He didn't answer, just reached into his coat slowly, carefully, and pulled out a folded set of documents. Her name's not Karen Winslow, he said. Not legally. Not for the last 10 years. What he laid out was beyond anything I expected. Real name was Carrie Winstrom, and she had a sealed record from a real estate scandal in Nevada. According to these documents, she'd been charged with mail fraud, wire fraud, and impersonation. She served 9 months, changed her name after a plea deal, and moved across state lines. Guess what she did next? 3 communities, 2 of which had mysterious emergency resignations from former board presidents. In one case, a veteran homeowner had his property foreclosed for unpaid fines that were later proven fake. Sound familiar? The man's name was Alan Torres, retired JAG officer. His brother was that veteran John Torres. John died of a stroke 2 years ago. 3 weeks after Karen fined him $40,000 for modifying his backyard deck without permission. Alan had been tracking her movements ever since. She doesn't just harass people, he told me. Targets them, and veterans are her favorite prey. She thinks we won't fight back. He paused, but you did. We cross-referenced everything. Alan had screenshots, affidavits, bank records showing HOA funds moved offshore, often to the same 2-shell LLCs, one in Florida, one in the Caymans. I added my folder to his. Together it was more than just evidence. It was an indictment waiting to happen. I asked the question boiling in my gut. Why now? Why me? Alan didn't blink. Because you're the first person who turned the camera back on her. The media gave it oxygen. Now we finish it. Over the next 2 days, Alan and I built a timeline. We mapped every HOA she'd served in, every property dispute, every financial transfer. We even found a whistleblower, an old board member from Cypress Ridge, who claimed Karen threatened his family after he discovered she forged vote counts on development proposals.
Oh.
But our battlement came when Alan got a call from Sedover, a former paralegal in Nevada. She sent us a sealed deposition Karen gave in 2015, where she admitted under oath that she used personal discretion when dealing with non-compliant veterans. The phrasing was cold, disgusting, and now legally usable at this point. The story went nuclear. A national military blog picked it up, and a cable news network aired a 6-minute segment titled "The Woman Who Tried to Erase Our Vets." It featured photos of the Sentinel, interviews with my dockmaster, and even a snippet from the HOA's own bylaws, which proved Karen had no legal authority to fine me. The internet turned savage. Comment sections exploded. GoFundMe I didn't even start crossed $60,000 in a week. But money wasn't the goal. Accountability was. Then came the subpoena from the Department of Veterans Affairs. Apparently someone at the VA saw the story and escalated it to federal housing officials. Karen wasn't just abusing HOA powers, she was discriminating against veterans, possibly violating the Fair Housing Act. That meant civil and criminal charges were both on the table. But just when it felt like the walls were closing in on her, Karen made a move no one expected. She disappeared. Phone disconnected. House empty. Her name vanished from the bankruptcy court system overnight. For a moment, we thought she might have fled the country. But Alan found something strange, a property transaction filed in Delaware. Under the name WNC Holdings, it listed a small cabin purchased in cash. A background skip trace linked the buyer's signature to Karen's old alias. We forwarded it to the feds. They moved fast. 3 days later, U.S. Marshals arrested her outside a gas station near Rehoboth Beach. She was carrying 3 phones, $22,000, in cash and to fake IDs. When questioned, she claimed she was taking a mental break from public service. The mugshot was on every screen within hours. Karen, now fully exposed, was indicted on multiple counts: wire fraud, mail fraud, HOA embezzlement, and interference with protected housing rights. Her total penalty? Up to 25 years in prison, plus fines that could cross $2 million. And all of it started with an orange sticker on my patrol boat. But this isn't just about Karen. It's about every homeowner bullied into silence. Every vet told they don't belong by people who've never served, never sacrificed. I got messages from across the country. A retired Marine in Texas, a National Guard medic in Georgia, an Air Force widow in Idaho, all with stories just like mine. And all of them thought they were alone until now. We created a nonprofit Sentinel. Watch to help fight corrupt HOAs and advocate for vet homeowners. Alan's the legal director. I'm the founder. I've already filed class action support for 3 states in the boat, still docked, still pristine, and now officially recognized as a historic vessel by the Navy Heritage Program. Funny, isn't it? Karen tried to erase that ship. Instead, she made it immortal. We thought it was over. But then Alan called me at 2:43 a.m. His voice was sharp, cold. "There's another one," he said. "When she's worse than Karen." I sat up instantly. The room was dark, but adrenaline hit like a spotlight. "What do you mean worse?" I asked. He didn't even hesitate. "'Cause she's still active. And this time, she's not targeting homeowners. She's targeting entire military housing. Communities. And she's already had 1 man evicted." I stared at the floor, phone pressed tight to my ear. I hadn't even processed Karen's sentencing yet. Now there was a new threat, a bigger one. Alan continued. "Her name's Donna Ryland. She runs the Eastern Region Housing Association in South Carolina. She calls herself a reformer. But what she's doing is calculated. Legal threats, fake fees, mandatory inspections that never happen. It's the same pattern, but covered better." Within 24 hours, I was on a flight to Charleston. Alan was already on the ground. He picked me up at the airport in a rented sedan, with the windows tinted, deeper than standard. "They've already tried to shut up 3 families, he said as we drove. One guy had his utilities cut off for refusing to remove a military flag in his window. The guy's wife just gave birth 2 weeks ago. I shook my head. "What's her angle?" Alan passed me a file. Inside were scans of maintenance. Violation notices, all unsigned, all marked urgent. With one thing in common, every target was a current or former service member. The civilian families? Not one report. Not one warning. Not 1 cent in fees. This wasn't mismanagement. This was a focused operation. We parked outside a quiet street in Lakeside Ridge, development with crisp lawns, quiet porches, and that same unnatural silence I'd felt before everything broke loose back home. A man in his late 30s stood on his driveway, arms crossed, watching us. "That's Jeff Kincaid," Alan said. "Army captain, retired. They evicted his cousin last month. Faked a non-payment report. Took her house in 11 days. Jeff walked up before we even opened the doors. "You're the Navy guy with the boat?" "Right," he said. I nodded. "Then I've got something you need to see." He led us inside. His living room was stacked with binders, timelines, emails, redacted letters from the HOA's Special Compliance Office. But what chilled me was the recording he played next. It was from his cousin's eviction hearing. The HOA attorney's voice was robotic. "Due to non-payment and refusal to comply with housing presentation standards, this resident's property has been reclaimed by the association under Article 7, subsection B." Jeff whispered, "That subsection doesn't exist." I checked every document we ever signed. Alan scribbled something in his notebook. "Then they're fabricating law." I looked around at the room. Family photos, children's toys, flag, folded in a shadow box on the mantel. These people weren't rebels. They weren't delinquents. They were doing exactly what they were trained to do: follow the rules, pay their dues, serve honorably. And they were being crushed for it. We stayed up that night building the map. Every known HOA violation filed under Donna Ryland's leadership. Every questionable audit. Every resident contact. The pattern became clear. Fast military families received inspections, fines. Board hearings at a rate of 4-to-1 over non-military neighbors. We interviewed 6 families. 4 had been told to tone down the military imagery on their porches. 2 were fined for having non-compliant flags, both of which were American flags. One woman, a widow of a fallen Marine, was told her memorial garden violated decorative continuity policies. We compiled it all, and that's when Alan got the call. A whistleblower, an internal auditor from the HOA named Brandy. Young, nervous, but fed up. She met us in the back booth of a Waffle House just outside of town. She brought a laptop and a manila envelope that nearly split open from how much paper was stuffed inside. I can't keep watching this, she said. They don't even pretend to follow protocol. Rylan issues verbal orders, then we backdate letters to make them look official. The system's rigged. She handed Alan a USB. This has every internal email chain between Donna and the compliance office for the last 6 months. You're going to want to look at week 14 specifically. What we found was sickening. Week 14 included a memo titled Non-Conforming Properties Priority Action List. Next to each address was a status, veteran flagged. Active duty delay 2 weeks, civilian nitrogen monoxide action needed. It wasn't subtle. It was deliberate, systemic targeting, with proof. Ryan and I knew what we had to do, but Rylan moved faster than Karen ever did. The next morning, local news reported an attempted break-in at the HOA offices. No security footage. But a message was clear. They knew we had something. They wanted it buried. That same afternoon, Jeff Kincaid found a notice taped to his door. Immediate foreclosure action initiated. No warning. No grace period. Just a threat. He didn't panic. He called me. They're trying to push me out before I can speak up, he said, so I'm speaking now. We went public. Alan contacted the same journalist who covered the Karen case. Within hours, the headline ran, New HOA accused of targeting veterans, deja vu, or national pattern. The story included scanned internal memos, witness testimony, and quotes from Jeff. The internet didn't just explode, ignited. Military forums, veteran networks, even political figures called for an immediate investigation. The Department of Housing and Urban Development issued a preliminary inquiry. Rylan responded the next day with a press release calling the accusations coordinated slander. But her press conference backfired because someone leaked footage of her laughing during a closed board meeting, saying these flag-waving types, they always crack first. You just have to tighten the leash. It aired on every major outlet within 24 hours. The next week, a federal audit team arrived in Charleston. They found dozens of procedural violations, financial anomalies, and illegal eviction practices. Rylan was removed from her post by emergency board vote. Just like Karen, she's now facing pending federal charges. Only this time, the scale is even larger. Over 110 families affected. 17 properties seized under fraudulent conditions. Estimated damages? It's over $5.7 million. But the part that still sticks with me? That folded letter under my wiper? One message. One warning. That's how it all started. And now, Sentinel Watch is officially working with 6 legal teams across 4 states. We're building a public database for HOA abuse. We're giving homeowners the power to fight back, to speak up, to know they're not alone. Because there's one thing these people always forget. We served so others could be free. Stop protecting that freedom just because we come home. 2 months later, I received a federal invitation, not to testify, but to lead. The Department of Housing and Urban Development wanted me to sit on a temporary advisory panel, focused specifically on housing abuse against veterans. But it came with a warning. There are more, hidden deeper. Some have government ties. The message was short, direct, and delivered in person by a field agent named Morales. You're not just dealing with corrupt HOAs anymore, he said. You're stepping into policy warfare. These people know the law better than you think, and they know how to bend it without breaking it. You in? I didn't even blink. Let's go. The advisory position came with clearance enough to see sealed complaints and restricted audit reports. What I saw wasn't just shocking, it was systematic. Over 40 housing associations across the country had been flagged for patterns of unusual enforcement, but none had been prosecuted. Why? Because in nearly every case, the board members had legal shields, political connections. retired judges on the boards, or law firms on retainer that specialized in delaying cases for years. The worst offender? A place called Redstone Crossings? Just outside of San Diego, 3 military suicides linked to housing harassment, 1 Marine veteran driven to homelessness, and all of it buried under legal jargon and internal arbitration. Alan flew out with me. Sentinel Watch had grown fast: 3 case managers, a legal advisor, and a forensic accountant. We set up a meeting with Redstone's former maintenance supervisor, a guy named Pete, who agreed to talk only if we met off-site. We found him sitting alone at a diner just past midnight, nervously flipping a coin between his fingers. "They're untouchable," he said quietly. "They don't care about rules. It's about control. If you question anything, they fine you until you break. And if you fight back, they blacklist you from every housing application in the region." I leaned in. "You got proof?" He nodded and slid a thumb drive across the table. "Board meeting recordings for a year's worth. I never deleted a single one. The audio was clear, labeled by date, and what we heard confirmed everything. In one clip, the HOA president says, "The vets will cave. They always do. Too much pride, not enough legal muscle." Another board member responded, "Good, that means less resistance when we start implementing the new zoning clauses." But it wasn't just talk. In a spreadsheet labeled Tiered Enforcement, we found notes on residents, color-coded by occupation and background. Veterans and law enforcement families were marked red. Everyone else? Green. We handed everything to the federal task force. But Pete warned us as we left, "Be careful. Redstone isn't run by amateurs. They've got legal cover, media spin, and something worse, someone on the inside." 3 days later, Sentinel Watch's servers were hit with a coordinated cyber attack. Emails deleted. Donor data compromised. Our site went down for 16 hours. Alan and I traced the breach. The IP masked through 5 countries. But the entry point? An anonymous email link sent to our general inbox 2 days after we began investigating. Redstone. It was a warning shot. But it also proved we were close to something they didn't want surfaced. I made a call to Morales. "You were right. We're in deeper than HOA games now." He replied with something I'll never forget. "Welcome to the part where laws get blurry. This isn't just about harassment anymore. This is systemic displacement. It's a quiet gentrification. And it's targeting those least likely to fight back." We pivoted fast. Sentinel Watch partnered with a digital forensics team from a private cyber unit, former military intel, now working in the private sector. Within 72 hours, they traced fragments of the deleted files to a proxy server owned by a shell company, Northrise Management Solutions. It was registered in Delaware, but we pulled a connection. The listed executive had once served on the board at Redstone Crossings. The same man appeared in a 2019 legal hearing about predatory housing contracts. Targeting disabled veterans, Alan stood up from his desk and slammed a file onto the table. That's it. That's the link. HOA corruption was just the front. These guys are flipping communities, forcing out vulnerable homeowners, flipping the properties and laundering them through shell management companies. The scale was bigger than anything we'd imagined. And now it had a face. The next morning, we flew to D.C. Morales arranged a private briefing with a multi-agency task force that included reps from HUD, VA, the DOJ, and even the IRS. They laid it out clean. You're dealing with a 3-level operation. At the surface, it looks like HOA mismanagement. Underneath, it's targeted financial abuse. But at the core, it's organized housing fraud and par with white-collar crime syndicates. I asked the obvious question. How do we stop them? Morales didn't blink. We start with public noise. Loud, unavoidable, something they can't silence. 2 days later, I stood in front of cameras at a press conference in Arlington. Behind me, blown-up images of redacted documents, email threads, and quotes from whistleblowers. We didn't name names, but we named locations: Redstone Crossings, Maple Hollow, Eastridge, and we released a public hotline, 1-800 VETHOME. Within the first 48 hours, over 9,000 calls came in. Most were just scared voices, broken, exhausted, but not beaten. One woman sobbed through the line. They told me if I couldn't pay the service fees, I'd have to move my son's wheelchair ramp. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know this was even illegal. We knew then this wasn't a story. It was a mission. 2 weeks later, the first arrests happened, not at Redstone, but at a smaller, quieter HOA in New Mexico. Affiliate location, under the same shell management firm. 3 board members taken in for financial fraud, then another and another. A chain reaction began. News broke nationally. Veterans targeted by housing syndicates disguised as HOAs. And suddenly every political office wanted in. But it wasn't over, because just as we were preparing our federal case, Submission Allen got an encrypted message. No sender ID, just a location pin, and 4 words. Your work isn't finished. He opened the link. It was a drone, video, slow, smooth, silent, showing a gated property in Virginia, pristine, uniform landscaping. No flags, no bumper stickers, just rows of identical homes. In the bottom corner, a marker popped up. Project 17. Active. That's when Morales called. You've just found the prototype. And it's funded with federal money. We weren't supposed to see Project 17? Not yet, because it wasn't just about property, it was about control. And the closer we got, the more dangerous it became. One wrong step, and we'd disappear. That's what Morales said right before he ended the call. You want to dig into that complex? He warned. Then understand this. There's no HOA president, there's no public board. What's running that place isn't on paper. You're looking at an experiment in compliance, not housing. Alan and I just stared at each other. We'd seen bad HOAs.
Oh! Corrupt ones.
Rigged systems. But this was different. This was coordinated silence. A place with no complaints, no violations, no fines. Yes, nobody was allowed to speak. We flew to Virginia that same night. No announcement, no paper trail. We rented an old van and parked it on a ridgeline near the outer fence of the community. No signs, no address markers. Just a massive gate with 2 cameras and a keypad that required a 6-digit code. What stood out? No guardhouse, no visible staff, no visitor lane. Every car that entered had a blue sticker on the windshield. Number? With sticker no entry. The homes were uniform, every window closed, every lawn identical, and not a single flag or decoration anywhere. Alan zoomed in with a long lens. Look at that, he muttered. Same curtain color, same houseplants, same porch lights. Every detail's cloned. I said it out loud. This place isn't a neighborhood, it's a control grid. We tried knocking on nearby properties just outside the Project 17 perimeter. Most people said nothing. One older woman looked straight through me like I wasn't even there. Then she closed the door. But at house number 344, a man cracked his window open just 2 inches. His voice shook. You shouldn't be asking questions. We already lost 3 neighbors. No warning. Just disappeared. Said they broke the covenant. Then their houses went up for sale the next week like nothing happened. I asked, what? Covenant, he whispered. It's not written anywhere. You just know when you've crossed it. He shut the window before I could ask more. Back at the van, Alan scrubbed the drone footage again. He paused on one frame, a rooftop panel with a strange emblem, a triangle inside a circle, surrounded by faint lettering. We ran it through image recognition. Nothing came up, so we did something reckless. We breached the property, not violently. We waited until 3:13 a.m. when a landscaping truck approached the gate. It opened automatically as the truck rolled in. We tailed its low, silent, no headlights, then parked near a drainage trench inside the perimeter. Immediately, something felt off. No sound, no movement, no dogs barking. Even the air felt heavier. Then we saw a row of black poles spaced. Every 100 feet around the property line, they weren't lights. They were sensors. Thermal, motion-triggered. We weren't alone. We ducked into a hedge line and watched a home down the street. Inside, a man sat in a chair, staring at a blank television screen. For hours, he didn't move, didn't eat, didn't speak. At 5:17 a.m., another man walked and dressed in gray, no bajand, handed him a pill, swallowed it, stood up, and walked out the back door like it was routine. Lynn whispered, "What the hell is this place?" We backed out at dawn. Then it got worse. By 10 a.m., our hotel room was ransacked. Nothing taken, just flipped. Message sent. That same morning, Sentinel Watch's backup servers went dark. Alan's phone received a text from an unknown number. "End your investigation. This is your final warning." We took the message to Morales. He met us in a parking garage downtown. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he said, "but Project 17 is a test model. It's a closed-loop community built under a shadow program run by a federal-private partnership. Officially, it doesn't exist, but unofficially. It's a prototype for zero-resistance residential compliance. Everything monitored. Everything regulated. Residents sign waivers hidden inside lease agreements. Full behavioral tracking. And yes, they're targeting veterans to test it first, because we fight back, or we used to." I clenched my fists. "What's the goal? Silence? Obedience?" Morales nodded slowly. "It's bigger than that. It's about scalable social engineering. If Project 17 works, they roll out 50 more in the next 10 years. Across major metros, all under the same model: private property, publicly unaccountable." We didn't hesitate. We made it public. At 7 p.m. EST, Alan uploaded everything: photos, audio, drone footage, testimonies to a secure cloud archive, and launched the Sentinel Watch War Room livestream. Within minutes, over 100,000 people were watching: veterans, lawyers, investigators, regular homeowners. We presented Project 17 by name, showed its connection to Northrise Management, exposed the emblem, the vanishing residents, the drug logs, the silence. And we asked the public one question: is this the future of housing in America? The reaction was immediate, explosive. Dozens of independent journalists jumped on the story. Retired military leaders issued statements. One senator called for a federal investigation. Another demanded emergency hearings on privatized housing control. But then, silence. A blackout. No updates. No progress. Every motion stalled, until one night at 3:42 a.m., Malin got a final message. Just a location, no sender, no text. We traced it. It led to a burned-out warehouse, 22 miles outside D.C. Inside, we found 2 boxes. One filled with shredded documents, the other, a single object, the folded flag of a dishonorably discharged veteran. One we recognized. He died 3 years ago, but his name appeared on Project 17's current resident roster, which means one of two things: either the records are fake, or someone's still using his identity.